welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing another plan with me in the month of October. I cannot believe it's October already, but we are here in the autumn or fall season and I'm really excited about this setup. I've got some new lighting, so we shouldn't have any problems with flashing light. So let's get started. I'm going to be using my Archer and Olive craft paper notepad as usual. I think I've used this in every setup the past year. This time around I'm going to be using some new acrylograph pens, and this is the Warm Fall set. I'm using these colours from the set. And I'm also going to be using a Uni Posca pen, and this is the PC5M, and then for my white highlights, my Uniball Signo boards. So to help me out this month, I've drawn out some of the elements I'm going to be using. They're not going to quite look like this, but it's useful to have this to hand just to remember all the elements of the design. So lettering this month, I've become obsessed with using Posca pens for lettering because they write so smoothly and so boldly. And I really love this sort of single thickness calligraphy at the moment. It's just my favourite, so it's what I decided to do for this month. I also always usually do a double page spread for my cover pages just because I prefer the way they look and I like that it's a fresh double page start for the month. So what I'm going to do with my acrylograph pens is add these different leaf designs, sort of coming out from the lettering, and I thought I'd start by doing each colour element, but then with these acrylograph pens they take a little while to dry, so I didn't want to have to sort of be putting my hand over bits that I've already drawn out. So I decided to, you'll see in a moment, I decided to actually work my way around the lettering and fill out the design. So one thing I do to make it really simple is I keep different elements the same colour, and then also a little trick is to draw the leaves around the empty space, if that makes sense. So you can see, you'll see as I go that I sometimes put the stem of a leaf sort of between letters, or maybe a point of a leaf between letters, and build around the other elements that I've done. It takes a bit of time to master doing this. I've actually really had to learn to arrange my elements and the composition correctly, so definitely keep practicing. If you watched my last video, which was my mid-year switch, you'd see at the back of my bullet journal I actually use it to practice out some of these designs, to do some doodles, to practice lettering and the layouts of my letters. So with this video, remember this is sped up. I take a lot of time thinking about how I'm going to lay things out, and I just wanted to slow it down here to show you the true speed of how I'm actually drawing. I mean, it sometimes takes me hours to do a bullet journal spread, so I do have to set aside a day. Also want to say with that if you haven't got as much time to set up bullet journal spreads like this, one thing I'm a real advocate of is stickers and washi tape. You will see if you follow me on Instagram that when I know I don't have time, I'll create spreads that are just stickers and washi tape that are just much quicker to put together. And also sometimes it might just be an idea to do a design that's much more simple. I've definitely done that before. I've just this time around found I've had time to create a spread that's a bit more elaborate, and also I spend a lot of time creating content. It's a bit of a part-time career for me, so I do find I have time to create spreads like this, but I don't want you to watch things like this and other YouTube videos with bullet journalists who create just the most amazing spreads and think that your bullet journaling isn't adequate if you can't do the same. That's just not the case. Bullet journaling mainly, for me, serves the purpose of reflection and mental health. I find it really relaxing to create these spreads. And for me, I've always said that if bullet journaling becomes something that is more stressful, or it becomes a bit of a chore, I need to change something. So definitely adapt it for something that suits you. Another question I get a lot on Instagram is where I get inspiration from. My top places are Instagram, looking at other bullet journalists' art. I don't tend to do recreations or copies or elements that I copied without crediting the artist. This is one thing I'm really passionate about, because doing this stuff and getting creative and putting your heart and soul into this does take a lot of time. So if you ever create recreations or create work that's inspired by another artist, definitely tag them. I see people doing this a lot on Instagram with my artwork, and it is just the loveliest thing to see how my bullet journal spreads have inspired people, and I love sharing people's recreations because there's a lot of talent out there. Another place I get inspiration is from Pinterest, and also I get inspiration from random things. I mean, I've used wrapping paper. I think Rifle Paper Company designs as inspiration before. I've sometimes used pictures of flowers and plants because, as you know, I'm obsessed with botanicals. I mean, that's all I ever put as elements in my spreads, to be honest. So there's lots of inspiration out there. Just go and look for it and make sure you use it correctly, and credit the correct artists who have inspired you. So I'm nearly finished with my designs. I'm just filling in some of the last spaces. You'll notice with the plants that have layered acrylograph, I'll put the base of the leaf first, do another element, and then come back to it after it's dried a little bit. These acrylograph pens take some time to dry, but actually for paint pens, they dry, I think, remarkably quickly. So it doesn't take too long to wait for elements to dry for you to start layering. And they layer so beautifully. I have not used any other paint markers that layer quite like these ones do. I'll have everything linked in the description that I've used in this setup below, and some discount codes for you as well. So next I'm just adding my craft paper elements, of course, and I'm just putting my calendar in. And at the moment I'm kind of obsessed with the note paper sort of post-it look, and of course I'm going to carry that into this theme today as well. So normally when I do this, like I have done, I will draw out the shape onto the craft paper, but then I'll cut it out before I outline it in black. I have no idea why I picked up my marker and started outlining it in black, because it makes it much harder to cut out. And also when you stick in the craft paper and outline it with a black pen, because you've got the edge of the craft paper, you can ensure that the line you're drawing around the note paper is much neater and it looks a bit bolder. But it still worked somehow, so I'm going to roll with it. So for the background of my white on black writing, I usually use a Tombow Food and Asiko brush pen, or a brush pen that can take the ink of the Uniball pen well, but I decided to use the Posca paint pen and it worked really, really well. I think it might be something I'll do from now on. I really wanted it to be bold as the colours and the writing is the October, which is why I decided to use it this time around. So I'm just taking my Tombow, and this is the N75, to do my shadow. This is my favourite grey Tombow pen. And a little tea break. There are a few things that I always have with me when I'm setting up my bullet journal. So in the background of this, I've put the sound off, obviously because it's sped up, but I have a movie on. I have a cup of tea. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm obsessed with tea. So I'm always drinking tea when I'm setting up a bullet journal. It just makes it much more relaxing and enjoyable. So I'm just adding some more note paper designs. As you can see, what I love doing is mixing up the type of note paper. So we've got this sort of ring bound paper, we've got different curls and folds, and I really love that look. It makes it look a bit more dynamic as a spread instead of having the same shape throughout. And then I'm just using these sort of black dotted lines to make October a bit like a spider diagram with all this stuff coming out of it. I saw this on Pinterest and I cannot for the life of me find the pin. I've been trying so hard to find it so I can credit the person, because they've inspired quite a few of my spreads. If you know the one I'm talking about, link it below or drop it in the comments and let me know. So then I'm just taking elements of the leaf design out into different areas of the page behind the post-it notes, just to add a bit of colour elsewhere. And then I'm bringing the sparkles back. I used to put these in all my spreads and I thought, let me just stop for a while, but I've missed my sparkles. So I'm adding a bit more of those around to fill some space. I don't like lots of empty space in my spreads, so actually when I set up this spread I didn't add any other extra elements, but you'll see it might look a little bit different when I post it on Instagram. So next we're moving on to my habit tracker and my mood tracker, and these two spreads have gone with me throughout my bullet journaling journey because they are so crucial. I use my bullet journal alongside a passion planner, and I get a lot of questions about how I use multiple notebooks or planners, and my bullet journal is much more reflective. So you'll see I don't really do much, well, I say much, I don't do any future planning in my bullet journal. It's much more reflective and centered around my well-being and tracking moods and habits and things like that. So with this design I'm going bottom heavy, so I'm putting all of my titles at the bottom, and you'll see when I fill in my leaf design, how I'll make that look like it's sort of heavy around the bottom, and then the design sort of loosens as it goes to the top of the page. So I've tried different types of mood trackers. I've tried more image-based ones, but for me this graph just works. It's so simple and easy to follow, easy to track. I just put the numbers for the days at the bottom, and then up the side I have smiley faces, very complex smiley faces, to signify my mood from extremely low to extremely happy. So this month I did a blog with Bullet Journal, and it's 5 ways to bullet journal to benefit your mental health. Definitely go check it out. I will link it in the description below. There I've got some great tips for you and how you can use your bullet journal to better your mental health. So here I'm just drawing out my calendars for my habit tracker, and I'm just drawing them out randomly around the page, and then I'll draw my notebook elements around that and fit it around that. It's probably the easiest way I find to create this sort of randomized design. And as you can see, I've done my note paper and its different elements, and then I'm just going to draw out squares that represent the date of each month, and then I simply colour in these boxes to represent when I've completed a task. As you can see, I got a bit bored drawing out squares, so I moved on to doing some leaf designs. And you can see where I might hesitate with my pen. It's me just thinking up where I want to put the next element and being a bit thoughtful about it. So then here you can see what I mean by a bottom heavy design. I've put the elements sort of grouped heavily together at the bottom and then just cascading up the top of the page. So then once I finish drawing all the boxes, I then use my Tombow to add a bit of shadow, and you can see the difference it makes and how these just pop off the page. I really love that look. So then I'm just adding one of each of the elements from the top of the page to the bottom. Another trick I use to make sure that this design works and that the colours are spread nicely across the page is to make sure that I don't put any two colours that are the same as close together. I mean, sometimes of course you'll get two colours that are close together, but I try and mix it up as much as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, please may I have a round of applause for finally spelling habit correctly. If you follow me on Instagram, you know the full story, but I've been spelling habit with 2 B's for the majority of my life and only realised a few months ago. So now I'm just carrying on the design across the bottom of the page and filling in the elements around my lettering. Then after that, I'm just going to add a few finishing touches to the page. A little design on my washi tape there. And then I'm going to name my habits that I track. And then one thing I do with my graph mood tracker, just to make it a bit easier, is colour the days that are the weekends. I find this just helps in terms of keeping track of where I am. And that is my mood and habit tracker done. So far I've got my covering page and then my mood and habit tracker. Now we're moving on to my gratitude spread. I've kind of been getting on with my gratitude spread a bit differently. I thought this time around that I would just make it so I've got enough space that when I'm journaling, reflecting, if I've got something that I particularly want to be thankful for, or if I've got a memory or something like that, I'm going to try and do it that way. I've just been finding that I've not been keeping up with daily gratitude or writing it down. I think partly because I do a devotional and Bible journaling as well, and I tend to put it in there rather than in my bullet journal. So I think I'll just use this a bit more as a memory keeper in terms of gratitude. Now, because the note paper is so big on this page, because I need more space to write, I did struggle a bit getting the design elements in, but I think it looked all right. Then I'm just going to letter my gratitude title. and then fill in the rest of my design. Then I'm going to move on to my first weekly setup, so the first few days of October and the second half of the week. So I thought I would split the last few days of September and October, and then I'm just going to do my sort of stacked monthly title, which I love, and then again I'm using my Posca pen to fill that in. And this thickness of Posca pen really works on A5 paper. I love how bold it is. If you want it a bit less bold, obviously just use a thinner Posca pen. Then I'm using my Tombow 990 to highlight my titles for my days of the week. And I give myself about 3 or 4 days to page. Because I have less space to fill out of journaling each day, I find I actually keep up with doing this every day. I think if I left myself a page a day, I would never get that much journaling done. And I find it a bit overwhelming in terms of filling the page. Again, like I said, I do lots of Bible journaling as well. So I don't want to overdo it and give myself too much to do. So then once I finish adding the design element, I'll then add these blobs that I usually do to put the date, and then I'll add the days of the week. And I really wanted something that was going to contrast with the bold, cursive, soft titles. So I've gone for this, I just made this up to be honest, I've gone for this sort of typewriter capitals font because I just really like the contrast between the two. I have a set of stamps which I used in my September setup, but I kind of wanted to push myself and try and see if I can do some different hand lettering. So then, as usual, I'm adding my craft paper sticky notes, and like I said here, I draw it out, then cut it out, and then I do the outline. And then last but not least, I'm going to add my shadow with my Tombow. So you might have noticed I haven't done my white on black titles and filled in some of these post-it notes yet. I wanted some time to think about what I was actually going to put in there. And I've gone for a Bible verse that says, "Rejoice always, pray continually, and then give thanks." And then I also leave my white on white writing till last, because with this Uni Posca pen it takes an age to dry, but also I've done it before where I flip the page over, written on the other side, and the white transfers. So as you can see, I put a piece of craft paper between the two to stop that from happening. And also I just need to give it some time to dry, which is why I've left it till last. You can see my spreads in full use on Instagram, so make sure you do follow me if you're not. That is Living Letter Plans. And I do lots of different spreads as well, like I said, for health and well-being. So here is my October setup, my cover page, my mood and habit tracker, and then my gratitude spread and my weekly journaling space. Thank you so much for joining me in my October plan with me. Be sure to subscribe, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Take care.